Hi everyone, this is Cristiano from Northwork. Today I'm going to interview Peter Mammes. Um, he is a young artist, originally from South Africa, but he has worked all over the world. He's worked in Russia, in Egypt. Now he's based in London, in the UK. And we will be talking about his work today, and he will be telling more about his practice and the way he approaches his work. Hi, Peter.
Hi, thank you for inviting me to do this, and yeah, let's talk.
Okay, so the first questions that I had is regarding your work. So how you approach it in the first place. So how did you start, you know, with your art, and what exactly shaped also your style of work and the way you work? You know?
So I've been making artwork from since I can remember, and I went to a art high school in Johannesburg,
Mm-hmm.
and when I left high school, I didn't go to university. I just kept on making art, and so I've never actually stopped. It's just been continuously. I've never ever stopped making art. Um, so I'm very much interested in history, and you mentioned that I've traveled and that I've worked in other countries, but that's also where I get my subject material from,
Mm-hmm.
and especially in museums. So uh, when I travel, I go to these museums and I find things that are like that fascinate me,
Mm-hmm.
and then I go back home and I draw them. And yeah, another thing that really interests me is pattern. So especially when it comes to, this is obviously something you guys would know a lot about in Italy.
Yeah.
It's more common, but where I'm from in South Africa, pattern and that sort of thing is not necessarily as common because we don't really have old stone buildings and old buildings. But so on my travels, all the kind of stone patterns that's carved onto buildings fascinates me. And everywhere that I've gone, I've taken some of these patterns. Um, so what's so interesting about patterns is you can sort of capture an entire civilization through a pattern. You could look at a pattern and go, that's a Roman pattern, or I don't know, that's an Indian pattern. But then also, it's not always like that because there's cross pollination of cultures. So when one civilization gets in contact with another one, then they sort of share ideas, and that's actually shown in the patterns themselves. So we're talking about the Italians here, and Rome and the Romans and everything, and that's very fascinating too because they, everywhere they went, they would take some of the culture. Now, obviously, they would share their culture too.
Mm-hmm.
So, something that I'm really interested in is neoclassical patterns and the architecture of neoclassical. And that is exactly that thing of like taking the old and sort of making it modern. And so, yeah, it's fascinating. So, my main thing is drawing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the basis of absolutely everything. And that's the way that my mind works too, is through drawing. And so, and from drawing, I make paintings, but they're always sort of drawings. And what I've started doing now is relief artworks. So sculptures that are like the drawings that have been turned into kind of semi 3D objects.
That must be fascinating with all of your patterns. So you might have many layers, and so you also get like the tactile
Yeah.
sensation.
So, so
Oh,
for instance, that sort of,
yeah.
in this pattern, I found this one in India.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fascinating as it's a, this is, so I've carved this pattern, but originally, so it was on a stone building, and then I drew it, and then years later, I actually made the pattern, kind of. um,
So from what you're saying, I can really tell that research has a big role in your work. And I was reading also about all of the research that you do on site, so in archives, and you mentioned museums as well. So how does that then become a part of your work, yeah, like your visual work? How do you, wave research into art?
so there's a couple of things that I'm really interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also, through the years, I've found that there's a lot of visuals around that too. And those are like historical figures and historical events. So, like at the moment, because in the UK, they're very obsessed with the First World War. Which, the rest of the world, they don't seem so obsessed with it. Like, yeah, they're very obsessed with it. And so I started doing a lot of research in the War Museum.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of my work is from the First World War as well. I don't know, it's just fascinating. And then also medical anomalies.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's because it shows different aspects of our nature in a very visual kind of way.
And I also was seeing that you use a lot of symbols linked to history, and especially World War that you mentioned now. Uh, Also, your painting or your drawing that you submitted for the Limitless call has it seems like a battleground. You have bodies and you have people that are hurt or suffering. It's a very specific drawing that really reminds of things that might have been like sceneries that might have been like in world wars. And I was to know which is the symbolism behind, and how did you link that kind of scene with the current epidemics, or just what the well was asking, so a different reality, the new opportunities. Can you tell us more about painting aftermath?
Oh yes, okay. Um, I forgot about that artwork. It was it was like, wow, I've done so much. Like, this that I showed you now. I've done so much since then.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so that drawing for me was the biggest drawing that I've done, and also it is one of the first, if not the first time that I've drawn a background into drawing. So a background that's like a landscape. So uh, normally I draw just patterns behind subjects. That's been actually quite a big thing for me. So if you were to look at any of my drawings, you'll find that they are kind of floating in space. So it'll be a figure or a hand or something floating in space with pattern behind it.
Mm-hmm.
That I've put a lot of into an actual landscape, and especially on that size, it's such a massive drawing. Uh, and basically, what it is, it's a scene from World War One.
Mm-hmm.
So with the trenches being completely blown out, and with stacks of dead bodies lying on the ground. And then there's a woman who's sort of bandaged. She's bandaged, and her head's also bandaged. And then behind her, there's a woman, just a naked woman standing there. And for me, it's a representation. So the bandages is something that I work on quite a bit. This idea of bandaging, because it's our way of trying to fix. It's a metaphor for us trying to fix things, you know. But at the same time, when you try and fix it, you're sort of hiding other things, you know. There's all kinds of bad things in our society that we always try and sort of make better, just like we do with in medicine. So these groups and everything. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's kind of like the common man, like, you know, regular people who are suffering, when we're all vulnerable in the middle of all these battles going around. Yeah. So I think that's kind of what I was dealing with with that drawing.
Yeah. So thank you, Peter, for the interesting chat. It was very interesting talking about your work and knowing more about your practice and how you interpret art making. Thank you, everyone, for being with us during this interview, and keep on following us on the video series, always here on Artworks social media. Thank you, Peter.
And thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.